Hi everyone, and welcome to another live Q&A. And today I have with me Claire Isa, who's a paramedic licensed educator from Toowoomba, registered nurse, maternal child health, and founder of After the Bump. Really pumped to have Claire here today. And Claire's basically going to help us understand what to expect in the first week. And there are so many things to expect and so many things that you just won't know about. But we know at this time of this recording during COVID-19 that many parents are lacking support during that first week period. So Claire, do give us a bit of an intro of who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about After the Bump.
Yep. Hi, everyone. So I'm a mum of four. As Nat said, child health nurse, registered nurse. About 2 years ago, I launched my own private child health nurse business, which is After the Bump. And I basically that allows me to home visit mums and their bubs and have clinic visits, all monitoring their growth and development of babies, helping with sleep, helping with feeding issues, all those sorts of things. Because I found when I had my own firstborn that I felt very insecure, and so that sort of spurred me on to want to start the After the Bump so that, I can give, more than the 20-minute appointment that you might have, so you don't feel rushed. So that's what I do.
Yeah, and I think, especially I remember, the first few weeks of my parenting journey, I often felt a little bit rushed and pressured, and a lot actually in maternal child health, I felt judged. And I really do love the increase of private provision of these services because it really enables to create that nurturing environment. And you are a paramedic licensed educator, which means that you provide our baby and child first aid program. So let's get going with these questions. For everyone listening, please hit a like button, comment below, and you can actually ask questions live. So put anything that you might want to ask a maternal child health nurse in the comments below. If you know anyone that's about to have a baby that's worried that they're not going to get the support, tag them in the comments. All right, we've got some great questions. This one that someone submitted to us earlier was, what happens with the umbilical cord? Now, when I ask these questions, I'm going to pretend I'm a new parent and tell me, what the heck do you mean, Claire? What is going to happen with the umbilical cord, and why am I even talking about it?
Okay, so basically what happens is they put the little clamp on it after baby's born, and that clamp stays in place usually about 10 days that stays there. And in that time, you will see the umbilical cord shrivel up, I guess. It's not the prettiest thing to look at. Goes a bit black and crusty and hard. But it's not hurting the baby at all. They can't feel that, so don't worry that it's painful. It's basically just that umbilical cord needs to dry off, and then it will eventually just fall off. If you do have a visit from a home midwife, sometimes they'll come and once it's looking okay, they'll take that yellow clamp off, so that it's not in the way anymore, but it is okay if it falls off and the clamp's still there. So all you need to do really is you don't need to touch it too much. Just make sure it stays nice and dry. Make sure you do clean a little bit around it. And most importantly, if you notice that it's getting red, the skin around it is getting red, or it starts to look a bit mucky, then you might need to let your GP or your obstetrician know just in case there's an infection. But generally they look after themselves. It helps sometimes to tuck them into the nappy so they don't get caught. But yeah, they don't hurt the baby at all. They just dry off and then they'll fall off.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's easy. That's easy enough, isn't it? But you would probably assume that it might be hurting a baby, because if you look at it, it looks a bit like if anything, it's like a scab, and you'd think if that would kind of hurt the baby. So it's really a good relief to know that it doesn't hurt the baby. And keeping it clean is as simple as keeping it dry, and tucking it into the nappy is probably another good tip, so it's not rubbing against anything. So wonderful. Let's move on to our next question. I heard that, and please, again, viewers, if you have any comments or questions, pop them in. I heard that in the first 24 hours, my baby will do a completely black poo. And in reference to this, people say it looks like tar, like road tar. So is this true, and why is this terrible black poo coming out of my beautiful new baby?
Yeah, so yes, it is true. The fancy name for it is meconium. So it is the first poo that your baby will do. It is black and sticky, like tar. Usually that's something that happens once your baby's born. Occasionally they do that while they're getting born, and sometimes that might mean they might need antibiotics or something just to not get an infection. But generally it's within the first 24 hours. It's completely normal. Basically, if you think about it, the baby hasn't really eaten, like, it's eaten through the umbilical cord, but it hasn't really had anything like milk yet. So there's nothing to make up much of a poo, but that's the body starting that process of learning how to digest. And you'll gradually see that poo change from that sticky poo, which is a really good one to get dads to change. Because it sticks really good.
Is there any tips to cleaning that? Because actually, you're right, it does really stick to them.
Yeah.
Is there any tips to giving that a nice clean properly?
Just be gentle, I guess. Obviously, like with girls in particular, make sure that you go front to back, because we don't want to be wiping that in anywhere to get infected. It's just be gentle. It's not the end of the world if you can't get every last bit off, just because we don't want to be scrubbing them too hard. They are new and sensitive and everything. So generally that first poo will happen when you're in hospital. But if you are in the situation that you go home within that first 4 to 6 hours, it might happen at home. So just don't need to have fancy wipes or anything, just nice, warm, soaked cloth, even your Chucks wipes, like kitchen wipes.
They haven't been used before, obviously.
Haven't been used before, correct. Something really soft, but yeah, don't worry about scrubbing it away too much. It does come off. And then gradually those poos change to be more of a brown, more like a poo looking colour. But eventually over the coming days, they become more of a mustard sort of yellowy, sticky, seedy kind of colour. So most people, well, some people don't realise, but baby poos don't look like grown-up poos. It's normal for them to be much runnier than normal poos until they start normal diet at like 6 months. So don't panic if it looks a bit runny. That's normal.
Wonderful. That's good tips, because we do assume that these are just little miniature humans like us. Yeah. Now, just another question, and this happened to me. I had 2 premature babies, Claire, and my first baby was born at 32 weeks. I was at work during the day. My waters broke. Had no idea what it was. I remember speaking to the cleaner at my work. They said, "Why the hell are you in here?" And then going into the hospital and then telling them, asking me whether it smells like sperm, because if it smells like sperm, they made me sniff my own underwear, Claire, to tell them what that fluid smells like. Anyway, then supposedly that's an indicator that it's your water's broken. And then went into labour. Then I went home the next day. Oh, when did I go home? I remember going home and my boobs were so hard. Yeah. And I rang my mum. I'm like, "Mum, something's wrong with my boobs. Something's wrong with my boobs." And I had no idea what was occurring. No one told me about it. What is this? Tell us.
Yep. So basically the simple way of calling that is your milk's arrived, basically. So when you first have your baby, you'll have just what they call colostrum, which is sort of a yellowy colour. And some people even can express a little bit of that while they're pregnant. So that's the first milk that your body produces. But when your breasts are getting ready for long-term breastfeeding. Your body gets that hormonal signal that the baby's here now and we need to feed it. So your milk arrives, and it's not immediate. It can take a couple of days. You do often wake up and go, did I have a boob job overnight? Because look at my baby now. This is what it feels like to have boobs. So it can be painful. If your baby is, if you're breastfeeding and you're learning to breastfeed, then you can get the midwife in the hospital, or if you're at home with your support person, get them to help you, and you can feed them, and that should relieve the pain. If you're finding that when you're feeding it's not, they're still painful, it's important to keep an eye out that you're not getting what we call mastitis, which is when you get a blocked duct in your breasts, and that can make you feel like you're getting the flu. So if you find that you've got a sore spot, and you're finding that they are really sore and they're hard and you can't get the milk, you can't express the milk, and you're feeling unwell, it's best to go see your doctor and check that you don't have mastitis. But it does settle down. You won't have rock hard boobs all the time. It's just that initial arrival of your milk, and then they sometimes call it engorgement, but it does settle down as your body gets used to your baby and what it needs. So your supply will match what the baby wants.
Wonderful. Okay, good. And there's so much more you can learn. I think the whole process of learning what breastfeeding is huge, but you do offer consultations in that, correct?
Yes.
Support parents. So I do recommend having a hotline. You just need to be able to make that call. And also you've got the Australian Breastfeeding Association, which is really helpful as well.
Yes.
Talking about baby milk, my baby has milk coming out of its nipples. What is this? This is new to me. I don't know whether that's embarrassing to admit. I've never heard of this before, but I'm keen to get the word out.
No, it's not very common. I think there's only maybe 5% of babies maybe have it. It used to be called witch's milk, which sounds really scary, not really a useful term. But basically what happens is it's hormonal. So it can happen with boy babies, which is probably what freaks parents out more, and also obviously also girl babies. But basically what happens, they won't all leak a little bit of milk, but sometimes they will look like they've got little breasts, and that's just to do with it's just a little bit swollen behind their nipples. And it's just hormonal. So basically just means they've had a big rush of mum's hormones, and that sort of lingered in the body a bit and made them have a little bit of growth in their breast tissue. But it does go down. Usually if they are leaking a little bit of milk, that will settle down within a couple of weeks as well. So it's nothing to be alarmed about. It's very unique. Doesn't happen often. And that's, I think, why people sometimes probably get a bit of a fright, because it's not very commonly known. So they worry about that, of course. But it's very normal. It just means that the hormone levels just need to settle themselves out a bit.
That's wonderful. Spread that word out there. Now, the next one is, and I think this is really at the moment, especially for parents who are happy that their maternal child health is available by telehealth. But I do believe, and I'm talking personal opinion of what I'm observing, that one of the most exciting reasons to go to maternal child health is to get your baby weighed. So, look, whilst there's we can, weigh your baby in the driveway during COVID-19 offerings, what can parents do? And a lot of the times we want to know how much our baby weighs because we want to know that we're feeding them enough, because often we can't measure that. So the next question is, I can't get my baby weighed at the moment and don't know if my baby is getting fed enough. Do you have any tips if someone does not have access to a maternal child health?
Yeah. So I guess the question's probably got two parts to it. So the first part is, what can you do about weighing your baby? You can weigh your baby yourself. It's not obviously going to be as accurate as baby scales. And don't rush out and buy baby scales. Really, you don't need them. They'll use them for a couple of weeks and that's it. So But what you can do is you can either weigh yourself holding your baby on just normal bathroom scales, and then weigh yourself without the baby and do a little bit of maths and work out what the difference was. And that's how much baby weighs. I have seen people use, if you've got a Thermomix, I've seen people weigh babies in a Thermomix. They sit them on top.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. Look, we're not. If it becomes a safety issue with any of this, we are not held liable. But that is really interesting. No. I love a Thermomix. Yeah. I love using it. But yeah,
do that. What you can also do if you have trouble, if you don't want to hold your baby, you can weigh if you've got a baby bath or even just something that a bassinet or something that's portable that they can sit in, or you can lie them in. Find out how much that weighs by weighing it on your scales, and then weigh that with your baby in it. So, so it might be putting a blanket in the baby bath and weighing your baby using the baby bath as something to hold it in. So you can get creative about finding ways to weigh them, but generally they will lose weight initially, and that's okay. So don't panic. The number really, it's important, but it's not the end of the world. It's exciting when you find out that they've put on weight, but it's not the end of the world if we don't have that magic number. Most babies will lose their some weight and have to regain to get back to their birth weight. That's very normal. So if you do find that they weigh less than they did when they were born, it might not be the scales. It might be that they have lost a little bit of weight, and that's fine. So the second part, I guess, of that question about how to know if they're getting fed enough, there's a few different ways. They should have probably 6 to 8 wet nappies during the day. So if you feel like you're not changing enough nappies that feel like they've got something in them, that's probably a good sign that they're getting enough. They're getting enough milk if they're getting enough nappies. What else can we have? When you're feeding, whether it's breastfeeding or bottle feeding, you can usually, if you listen carefully, you can hear them actually swallowing. So if you can hear them swallowing, it means that they're doing the right thing. So that's a good start. And most of all, if they're happy, like their behaviour, if they're hungry, they'll let you know. So if you fed your baby and you feel nice and comfortable and you don't still feel like you're going to explode, and your baby's fallen asleep or looks milk drunk and happy, then you're doing fine. And we can keep an eye. Yeah, we can find other ways to measure how they're going.
Yeah, wonderful. And look, we might as well, while we're going there, and if we can try and, I know it's, again, feeding a really big topic, and that's why it is so good to have someone like yourself to support parents through this. But if I don't feel like my baby's getting fed enough, so they are irritable and seem very hungry, even though I'm trying to feed them the first few days, do you support top-ups? Like, what's the situation with that? Formula, topping up on formula?
At the end of the day, fed is best. So whether that's formula or breastfeeding, we want them fed. So I would encourage you probably not to give up on your breastfeeding. Yeah. There are plenty of people out there in your local area, or I'm more than willing to help you over telehealth, no matter where you are, that we can give the breastfeeding a good shot. The Australian Breastfeeding Association has a hotline as well that's 24 hours a day. So there are lots of resources out there to help you. It can just be a really simple, just checking that the baby's able to attach on there properly. There's a few little tricks and stuff that we can try just to check that everything's lining up okay. And if after that we're still worried, there's no harm in adding formula top-ups if they're necessary. You can also add breast milk top-ups too. You can express, if you find that your baby only feeds off one side, sometimes you can express from the other side and use that to top them up later. So newborns are very sleepy, and they often fall asleep when they're feeding. So I wouldn't worry too much in the first week about giving them formula top-ups, unless you're having a lot of trouble attaching them and the breastfeeding itself is going really badly. But if it's just that they're feeding frequently, that's quite normal. They've only got tiny, tiny tummies. So they do feed often, and only a small amount each time. So you might find that.
And I'm sorry, because I love this topic. And so sorry, if you do have any questions, pop it in the comments. And if you like what you're hearing, you're right. They are really, really tired and they are really, really tiny. And I think sometimes, if I was breastfeeding, worried that they weren't feeding and go to formula, we automatically go to buy a bottle. But I've been seeing some great innovative ways to feed your baby without a bottle using express breast milk. Would you be able to open up some suggestions to parents? Because sometimes that's then the next difficulty. They're not having the bottle. So there's great things. I think there's something you can put on your nipple and it collects some milk and you spoon feed. Anyway, share the details with us.
There are so many different that weren't there when I had my kids. There are things where you can, it's sort of tube feeding. So they're still at your breast and they're still breastfeeding as such. But what happens is you get there's a special little tube that machine that basically drip flows extra milk into their mouth. So that's good if you're having trouble with your supply. It is something that you need to do under guidance with a medical professional, but that is one technique. But you can syringe milk into your baby's mouth in the short term. Some babies you can even let them, you can use a cup. It's hard to sort of show you that right now, but you don't want to be like,
just but there is alternative options, and I think that's really powerful in itself, because often the conversations in the community is breast or bottle, and the bottle comes in so difficult. I don't think that's an automatic easy option. It has its own difficulty, especially when they're so young and small and tired. So there is alternative options, and to speak with someone like you. So let's get back to our next question, because we don't want to steal your whole afternoon. My baby only sleeps when I hold it, Claire, and I'm so tired.
Yeah, that's really common. And you may or may not like my answer, but at the end of the day, I would totally just encourage you to enjoy those times. Obviously, if it continues, I'm talking in your first week or so, if you need to rest too. So take the time. If your baby will only sleep because you're giving it a cuddle, then cuddle away, because you need to recover as well. If you've got a partner at home or mum, at the moment we may not have our mum there, but if you've got, I know in Queensland we can have visitors now. So if you're in Queensland, get your mum over. But if you're not in Victoria, sorry. But if you can, encourage, when the baby is happy to let someone else hold it, take those opportunities to look after yourself, have a rest. I know a lot of people will probably give you advice when you're pregnant. You've got to sleep when the baby sleeps. Sometimes that might not be what you want to do. So if your baby happens to go to sleep in your arms, just enjoy it. If that means you watch Netflix or read a book or you play Candy Crush on your phone, whatever, just enjoy the cuddles. As they get older, there are ways that we can help encourage them to sleep away from you, but it's a very important bonding time initially, and you can never give them too many cuddles. So the important thing is, if it's causing you your mental health, so your mood, if you feel that you're not coping because you're getting so tired, it's important you reach out for help. But if it's not bothering you, there's nothing wrong with just sitting there and cuddling your baby to sleep.
Yeah, and I think No, I don't know whether I told you, Claire, but I used to provide sleep support back in my heyday. So I was a nanny that worked with parents, and I used to love the topic of sleep. And often when I see an identified issue with sleep, it's not really that there's an issue with the baby's sleep patterns. It's just not blending with our own.
Yeah.
And I love how you say it doesn't need to. Can you just, mix your own schedule up for a little while?
Yeah.
But if it's affecting your mental health, that's when you need to
Yeah.
raise your hand with there's certain strategies that you can use
Yeah.
to kind of work that whole situation out. So if we're saying let's cuddle our babies and sleep, let's try and what does this mean in regards to safe sleep?
Yep. So in regards to safe sleep, so if possible, obviously, we need to follow the SIDS guidelines. So that generally means sleeping them on their back in their own bed, usually a bassinet in your parents' room in the first week, not covered up and all those sorts of things. So we do encourage you to follow those SIDS guidelines, particularly for the overnight sleeps. But with your little babies in that first week, definitely, if you're putting them down, put them down in that environment. But if they won't let you put them down, just make sure that their faces remain uncovered if you're holding them. If you do think that you're going to fall asleep holding them, then it's probably best to find someone who can hold them that's not going to fall asleep, so that you don't drop them. They don't roll off you onto the floor, because there is safety aspects to all of that. And also, if you're on strong medication at all, that's another thing to be aware of, that if you yourself are feeling tired, that sleeping with them on your chest, it has to be done in a safe way. So it's better if you can be awake when they're asleep, but yeah.
I think it's really all about risk minimization, and I think we're able to make safer decisions with the more information we've got. So we do highly recommend checking out Red Nose and their resources. And there's many more resources available. Well, what it comes down to, I think, is knowing what the recommendations are and how to minimize that risk, and then taking all steps or measures to minimize that. And that's really in relation to parenting. I find that's the same when we're discussing how to cross a road safely with our kids, or when you're in the car park and you've got toddlers and you're trying to hold hands. It really is, what we find are the circumstances we find ourselves in as a parent can be really unsafe at times. So, and it's really just reducing that risk. So some of the core ways to reduce risk, if you are going to jump in bed with bubs, is you can see heaps of contraptions that people can buy to attach to their bed. Side sleepers, none of those are recommended. All I want you to keep in your mind is the more stuff that you've got that could potentially cover their face, the more dangerous it gets. The second thing is we often say let's pop them in the middle, so they're not going to fall out. That's where you have the potential risk of your mattress sinking, as an example, and then being in a circumstance where there's a higher risk in regards to safe sleep. Another thing we get is people saying, I'm going to push my bed against the side of a wall. Again, if the baby does roll into that circumstance. So one of the safest spaces would be a mattress on the floor with your baby on the side of the bed, and not using your big doona, obviously. So trying to minimize how many doonas and pillows are around their face. So it comes down, there's many ways to reduce risk, but I think just understanding that reducing risk is the way to go with safe sleep, and where you're going to put your baby to sleep. So my baby loved pram walks, So often in the afternoon, I do the afternoon walk, come back in, put the pram in the kitchen, and then let my baby sleep while I cook dinner. Now, prams aren't suitable for sleep. And when we're saying that, I think the most important message I can get out there is they're not a sleep device, so they're not approved for safe sleep. That's the same as your car seat. Yes, your baby will probably fall asleep in a car seat at some point in time, but it's not approved for that purpose. So whilst those things aren't approved for that purpose, and I don't think bassinets are either, actually. So Red Nose does recommend cots, but that's not them saying, they can't say yay or nay either way, because it's not approved for that purpose. So if you are going to pop your baby to sleep in the pram and let them, that's fine. Just make sure it's supervised. Yeah. So I think that's where that conversation about safe sleep, I love that conversation. All right. Well, thank you. We've just got a few things to finally go over. If you do have any questions for Claire, chuck it in the comments. If you loved what you saw, tag people, give it a share. Okay. Well, I know for a fact, Claire, because I built it, that there's an online course available. So our biggest concern at the paramedic movement is when we sat there, we've always been a digital organisation. We love online. We'd love to have multi-modes of delivery because we know what this might suit you, might not suit them. We've got regional, rural parents that we want to get out to, that we can't always get out to. So online's always been a bit of my jam personally. So we've launched an online product. It isn't to replace in-person events in any shape or form, but it's us saying if you're either about to have a baby or have a baby, we want to make sure that you get to know the most important stuff that you need to know now and be prepared for it. What are the most common things that happen in that first year? And then I want you to complement that with an in-person event. So we have created this online product to support our educators. So every time you buy from Claire, Claire will make a bit of pocket money. And that's because we want to survive COVID-19 just like you guys and get to the other end. So Claire, and we're going to still have this product after COVID-19 because we love it. Claire, how can people, I'm just going to jump to your website because I know you've popped a link directly on your website to buy our online baby first aid product. So tell people how they can purchase online baby first aid from you or other services that you offer.
Yep. So all the services that I offer are on that website. So if it's the baby first aid online that you're after, it's just in there under education, and there's a little button so you can do book now, and that will take you through to purchase that, and then I'll be in contact to support you while you do that online baby first aid, or through the Parent Medic website. You can also book that online first aid course, which is fantastic, and I love it. So particularly in Toowoomba, because we do have a lot of rural parents, it's a really good option that I'm really happy to be able to offer them now. So the other services are there as well, but if you've got any questions, just send me a message, because the whole point of my business was for it to be unique to the family. Like at the end of the day, no one is exactly the same, and we have different needs, different parenting styles, and so if there's not a package or service that suits what you are after, you just let me know and we can work together to work out what kind of support you need.
Now, well, isn't that wonderful? Because I think it just helps people feel more connected and finding alternative ways. You know, part of us has to get used to using online services. So this is a really good start. Now, before you go, I just want to, if you could help us, we, the paramedic movement, are continually looking for new educators, even now, because in order to become a paramedic licensed educator, you do need to complete a course and a set of mandatory requirements, and then you're set free as a licensed provider. We are currently sitting at a community of 60. We are always looking for more educators. I think we're a wonderful community to be part of. But can you tell us why you love being a paramedic educator?
Well, I love it because of that. Definitely because of that community. I always know I've got someone to support me, to back me up. So when I initially became an educator, I was actually looking at trying to create a course myself. Just because I noticed that the parents that came to see me would often ask me, what do I do if my baby's choking? And I wanted to be able to offer them some sort of education. And when I came across Parent Medic, it's perfect. Like, it's beautiful presentation that is it's perfect for parents. It's no big fancy words. It's great. So I love being able to give that to parents because we don't all have medical backgrounds. We don't all have a whole day to put aside, or 2 days to put aside to do a first aid course. So I love being able to go into families' homes, or even some corporate places have been hosting them for their staff. And it's just great to be able to give it to people that maybe normally wouldn't access it because they don't have time or no one to look after baby and all those sorts of things. So, and the team's awesome. So makes it
You have to say that. All right, crew. Now, if anyone's wondering how they become a paramedic educator, you can just jump onto our website and touch base with our team. Now, before we go, one more reminder, Claire. If you do want to purchase a baby online first aid product directly and support Claire Toowoomba, Queensland, that is her link. And also really proud to support the other stuff that you do, Claire, because it's really helpful to parents at this time. A big wave goodbye. Claire will share her details in the comments also. And thank you guys for your support.
Thank you.